I don't sell people what they want to buy. If somebody's going down the wrong track, instead of just saying, okay, here's that gear, just go ahead and buy it, I'll try to have the conversation with them first.
Hey, my name is Felix Tia, and I'm the host of Shopify Masters, a weekly podcast powered by Shopify, the easiest way to sell online, in person, and anywhere in between. Each week, we invite entrepreneurs like you to share what they've learned growing successful e-commerce businesses. In this episode, you'll learn how to help retailers sell and educate customers on your products, how to balance between selling to retailers and selling directly to consumers, and how to identify the biggest hurdles for your customers that stop them from buying. Before the show, I wanted to chat about Exchange Marketplace. It's Shopify's marketplace to buy and sell businesses. In addition to browsing businesses that are up for sale, you can now gift a business to an aspiring entrepreneur in your life for as little as $50. Visit exchangemarketplace.com/categories/gift-a-business for more information, or you can go to the show notes to get the link as well. Today, I'm joined by Michael Hagan from Hagan Ski Mountaineering. Hagan Ski Mountaineering sells advanced backcountry skiing gear for accomplished skiers who want to accomplish more. And Mike is the U.S. distributor and is a six-figure business. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Hello. Good to meet you, Felix.
Yeah, so you told me that you saw an opportunity in the ski market. So tell me more about that. What was the opportunity that you saw?
Well, I was in the Army, and I was stationed in Italy actually at the time, and I went on a ski trip to Austria, and I met my wife there and her family, and basically was introduced to ski touring or alpine ski touring then. I had done it in the Army before, but a military version, not a recreational version. And her family introduced me to the sport, and I loved it. And I thought, this just doesn't exist or is not, just is unknown in the United States. And I saw an opportunity to bring the gear and introduce the sport to the United States. I won't say introduce, it was here, but it was small. And it was much bigger in Europe. And I just saw the potential for growth in the United States.
Got it. So the company, it's an Austrian company. It's been around for a while, right? Tell us more about kind of the history of it and how you got introduced to the brand.
Okay, yeah. It's an Austrian company. It's been around since 1924. It's the oldest ski company in the world. It's actually tied with Fischer, which also makes alpine gear and alpine skiing tour. They were founded, both of them, in 1924. It was founded by two brothers in a small village. They were wagon wheel makers, and after the First World War, the economic situation wasn't too good. And they kind of foresaw, cars were coming in and wagon wheel sales were going to be going down, and they skied. So they switched from making wagon wheels to making skis out of ash wood. And their name was Hager, and they were from the little village called Antiesenhofen. So they combined the first three letters of Hager and the first two of Antiesenhofen and came up with the brand name of Hagan. And they had been around since 1924. So when I met my wife, it's kind of a funny story. Her father is somewhat typical Austrian, a little bit Teutonic, a little bit straightforward. And he would kind of tested me. He said, "Let's go skiing." He wanted to test me, and we went driving up to the mountains, parked at a trailhead. He got the gear out of the car. We fortunately had the same size feet, so I used his old hand-me-down gear. He got out of got the gear out of the car, put it on the ground, clipped into his gear, and left. And I'm like, how's this gear work? How do I get into these bindings? Because I had never seen them before. They were a new, at the time, very advanced binding. So it took me a few minutes to figure things out and try to catch up with him. So it was a little test. And the skis that he happened to give me were Hagan skis. And then later on, when I started getting into racing, I met a couple guys on the Austrian national team that were on Hagan skis. And kind of one thing led to another. When I moved to the United States and I wanted to get into ski mountaineering racing, I knew Hagan wasn't available in the United States. So instead of being simple and just buying the skis while I'm visiting in Austria, I actually asked them if they were looking for a U.S. distributor, and they said, sure. And so I became the U.S. distributor.
So first of all, a super cool story about the brand. I love hearing about businesses from almost a century ago learning how to pivot back then even. So that's super cool that's their background. So you were interested in doing the sport in the US. You didn't see the gear that you liked when you were over in Europe, and you reached out to Hagan and asked them, "Do you need a U.S. distributor?" I'd be surprised if that was the first person ever to approach them about this, or what was the situation? How were you able to pitch yourself in a way where you became a U.S. distributor for them?
Yeah, it was a simple email. I just wrote them and said, kind of told them about my background with the military skiing and my wife being Austrian, that I had learned about the brand. And I had been, moved back to the United States and was trying to get into the sport. And I realized there was a lack of quality and competitively priced gear in the United States, and asked if I could be their distributor. And they wrote me back and said, sure. It was just as simple as that, an email, and they wrote back and said, yeah, you can do it. And it's pretty interesting because it was entirely based off trust. To this day, we don't have a contract between me and them. And they shipped me the first set of gear, and without me paying in advance, it was just all based on trust.
Wow. So they emailed you back, said yes, you can do it. So tactically, what happens next? Like once you got the okay from them, again, this sounds like basically a handshake deal. What were the next steps to actually turn this into a business?
Well, I started really small, and the whole market in the United States was quite small. I guess this has been a little over 10 years ago. It's been advancing. The market has been growing amazingly quickly lately. But at the time it was pretty small, and it was simply a matter of calling up the very few retailers in the United States at that time, or some of them. I didn't reach out everybody, but and especially I started kind of in Colorado, visited a few of the ski shops that had it, because it's very specialized gear. Most ski shops don't carry it. They're starting to, but at the time there was probably there was maybe 6 ski shops in Colorado back then that had the gear, and I just contacted them, either email or visiting, and got a few relationships with a few retailers going.
So explain a little bit more. I think most of the listeners out here listening right now are probably more used to kind of like not being a distributor, but either buying and selling product, holding inventory themselves and selling it, or creating inventory themselves and selling it. So when you are a distributor for I guess a foreign company, you are purchasing the inventory ahead of time. Like, what is the logistics of how you transact your business?
Yeah. I at the time, starting off, I would work with the retailers and get orders, and I'd try to get the orders in the summer, or actually late spring or early summer, and get their orders, and then try to make an estimate of how much more I might sell, directly, which at the time wasn't much, and then just send that order to Austria, and they would ship me the gear. At the time, it was just skis. They didn't have bindings or boots, which they do now. And I would get the gear. It would be shipped. I'm small, so it would be shipped air freight instead of sea freight, so a little bit more expensive. But and then I would break it down, sort it out, and send it to the retailers.
And who assumes the risk in this deal? Does it change depending on, I guess, that the details of the deal, or is it, like, in general, who assumes the risk in this kind of arrangement?
Yeah, that's me primarily. Austria assumes the risk if I don't pay, but I assume the risk if retailers don't pay me. If a retailer goes bankrupt, which I had in one case, and I got burned by one retailer. So the risk is primarily on the distributor.
Okay, so then you had these agreements with the retailers. Was it hard to pitch them to get the products into their stores? What was that process like to get it out into the market?
Yeah, it is. It's relatively hard to pitch to new retailers with a brand that was unknown in the United States at the time. Yeah, it is hard, because marketing is pretty key, and brand awareness is for expensive gear that's in shops, yes, it's hard to get retailers to buy in, because they're concerned about their sell through, and it's easier to sell brands that people know than a new brand that they're not so familiar with. Some boutique retailers like that. They like to be able to distinguish themselves from bigger retailers. But it's a bit of a tough sell. That's I would say that's the biggest obstacle is the name and brand recognition.
Got it. So name and brand recognition certainly helps you get these agreements with the retailers. You mentioned in certain cases the boutique shops want kind of more, I wouldn't say obscure brands, but brands that don't mimic the inventory of the bigger brands. So that gives you a shot. But what else worked to give you a chance? Were there any retailers that said, "Hey, I want to work with you. I want to take a chance with you. I believe in you," because of some reason? Like, what was it that you learned about what worked in terms of getting into a retailer?
Yeah, we had something in common. And so backcountry skiing or alpine ski touring, for people that don't know, is quite different from regular downhill, like lift serve ski area skiing, in that you climb up. So you climb up with special bindings, special boots that are more mobile. The heel is free, so you can get a walking stride. And you have these climbing skins, they're called, that help you climb up, and then you take them off and ski back down. The downhill part is quite similar now to regular ski resort type downhill skiing, but the climbing is totally different. And so it's a fitness sport. It's an aerobic sport, and initially the people that started selling it were people like me that love the sport, and my first retail sales were largely to other people that I met at races, at ski mountaineering races, and they were so into the sport that they started retail shops, and I was so into it that I became a distributor. So that's largely I was selling to a few friends that had started their own stores.
Got it. So basically, everybody in the industry, at least when you started, were already huge fans of the sport themselves, and it sounded like they started businesses just like you around their already existing passion for their sport. Now,
Yeah.
what's your role once a retailer wants to carry the products? Do you play a role in helping them with the sell-through? Like, do you play a role in helping to market? Like, what's your role at that point to make sure that the retailer is happy so that they will purchase more inventory from you?
Yeah, and that's something actually that I need to be better at, is the help with the sell-through or help with the education on the products. Now, most retailers, like I say, are so into the sport, they pretty much know the gear left and right. But when there's a new ski, a new binding, explaining the features to them and explaining how to, how to market those features to customers, tell them what this product does, this ski or this binding or this boot, what its advantages are and how it will help a consumer meet their goals. So educating the retailers is important, and something I haven't done as well as I would like to and need to do better. I've been doing a lot of that on the Shopify for direct consumers, trying to have very good explanations of the gear, but that's always something that can be done better, and it's time consuming though to be contacting and working directly with all the retailers.
Mm-hmm. At this point, how many retailers do you have?
Not too many, in the dozens is all.
Got it. Now you mentioned, of course, the Shopify site. At what point did you start also selling directly to consumers? Was it at the same time as working at the retailers or after?
Yeah, it was after. So originally I didn't even have a website, so I was bringing in the gear, and I guess this was 10 or 12 years ago now, bringing in the gear and, contacting retailers and selling directly to them. And then pretty much literally selling to friends and out of my trunk at ski races. We do the race and then have a beer afterwards, and people say, "Hey, well, what kind of gear is that?" I say, "Oh, it's a new brand I'm bringing in," and selling a set of skis maybe in the parking lot after a race. So originally no website at all. Then I got a website, a very rudimentary, Apple iWeb website, with no e-commerce function whatsoever, and sales were growing slowly to direct sales. But literally, people would email me and say, "Hey, I'd like to get a set of those skis," and I'd say, "Okay, send me a check." It was so cumbersome and really small. And then, the big switch, and when I started direct sales increasing was when I switched to Shopify, I think 3 or 4 years ago now. And, direct sales to consumers have been steadily increasing ever since.
Mm-hmm. And when you do have these existing retailer relationships, and then you decide to sell directly to consumers, I'm assuming that's a delicate balancing act. Tell us more about that. Like, how do you manage those kind of? I mean, I'm not sure if you consider them competing interests, but obviously you're also now become a retailer yourself.
Yeah, it is. It is a balance, and I think it's a struggle or a balance that all or most all brands, any brand that is attempting some direct sales is going through, is how to have your direct sales without undermining your retailers. In my case, it's almost required because it's a niche sport, and I'm not in that many retailers. Not everybody can find a Hagan gear within 50 or 100 miles of where they live. So many people, almost have to go online to get it. And most of the retailers, Hagan we're specialized in backcountry skiing. We're a small company, but we probably have the widest variety of gear of any brand in in the world. We have 13 different skis. We have 9 different bindings. We have 3 different poles, all kinds of different gear. And not every shop carries it. So there may be some ski or some binding that, a customer doesn't have, anywhere close to them. So the only way I'm going to be able to sell it is by going direct to consumer. So it's kind of balancing that without undermining the pricing. I have to be real careful about having sales. We have a pricing agreement with retailers and when and how much they can discount it. And, even when I make like couple Black Fridays ago, I had a 24-hour sale was, a little bit bigger discount than retailers were supposed to have at the time. And I heard back from a retailer, said, hey, how come you're having a 15% off sale and we can only have a 10% off sale? So, you make mistakes like that along the way and you learn from your mistakes. And hopefully the mistakes aren't too costly.
Right, makes sense. Now you mentioned that the traffic and the sales to your own store, your own online store, is steadily rising. Where's that coming from? Where's the increase or the steady increase of traffic and sales coming from?
Hopefully it's partly because of Shopify is definitely helping with search visibility. So there's 2 aspects to it. One, the sport is really growing, just taking off tremendously in the last 5 years, especially. It's just boomed in the United States. And that, that was that potential that I saw. People tend to say that, Europe was 15 or 20 years ahead of the United States. And it certainly that was the case 10 years ago. And now the United States is really growing. So part of my increased sales are simply because the sport has gotten so much bigger in the United States than it was. I would say it's 5 to 10 times bigger than it was 5 years ago. I mean, it's really grown. And then, the other, increase in sales is through, I think largely just through getting on Shopify and having much more visibility, making it easier for people to review, learn about the products and easy to order. So having Shopify has really helped with that. On the other hand, what I'm fighting is because the market has really grown, the big companies that were traditional alpine, downhill skis, about 5 years ago, they realized, hey, this is a little plaything market anymore. It's becoming substantial. So a lot of the big brands that people would be familiar with got into the market, and because of their marketing, it actually made it much harder for me and retailers. I lost several retailers because they could go with a brand that had $1 million marketing budgets, and everybody had heard of because they from their alpine skiing days they'd seen 3,000 sets of them on the chairlift. So the market was growing, but the big brands were jumping into it just as fast as it was growing, or even faster. So the pie got bigger, but it was getting sliced up pretty thin. And it made it really hard on some specialized brands like Hagan and a few others. Made it pretty tough. I think we've survived and made it through that, and are continuing to grow.
Got it. So you said a couple key things in there. First of all, you talked about the growth in the business, but then also the growth in attention from bigger brands and the kind of struggles that came with that. So I want to talk about that in a second, but let's first talk about the growth in the business. So you mentioned the sport grew, the SEO, the kind of search visibility was improved as you invested more into your online presence, your website, and then you also allow people to see reviews and leave reviews and learn more about the product. So let's talk about more about the website itself. So you mentioned education was something that you found that is important for retailers and also education for you to your customers through your website. Tell us more about that. Like, what do you focus on when it comes to educating your prospective customers?
Yeah, so a lot of people are quite new to the sport. There's some that have been with it for a long time and know the gear, but I would say because it's growing so rapidly, over half the people are first time buyers of any gear in the sport of ski mountaineering, and have a lot of questions. So having a good product description, I think, really helps. I try to write in the product description of who the gear is designed for, what type of skier, how advanced they are, what their goals are. And then like the bindings are kind of complicated. So I have some videos on how the bindings operate. I need to do more of that. The more videos, that's definitely the future, is to have more videos explaining things, explanatory and maintenance type videos. And then, I use a Shopify blog to talk about, type of gear you would use for different type of trips, hut trips, or different types of skiing or racing. So using the blog is also education for customers. And like we have 13 different types of skis. So for a beginner, they're like, well, what type of ski should I get? So blog posts saying, okay, these type of skis are for this type of skiing, are really helpful.
Yeah, I think I've heard this before too, where the goal really of any website or any sales process is to remove any uncertainty from the purchase. So you are creating a lot of content for the blog. You mentioned creating videos, educating them on what to get, how to use it, how to care for it. Do you find that this is what has improved conversions for your website the most, or are there other changes that you've made that have made an impact on the conversions and sales?
I do think having the information and the descriptions is helpful. I think actually what helps probably almost more than anything, especially with it's not like selling cars, and everybody at least knows what a car is for. It's a lot of people get into sport and have heard about it, have seen people doing it, but really don't know how it works. So having reviews, I think, customer reviews and testimonials is probably, as a relatively small brand in a niche sport, I think the customer reviews and testimonials on, I have some nice testimonials where people say, they got good health. A lot of people just call or write with questions, and when they say, hey, Mike Hagan can give you good, he's an expert. He spends time explaining things to you. I think that really helps with comfort people and make them confident in making a purchase.
Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying the show, please leave us a review on iTunes to let us know what you think or what you'd like to hear more of. Now, let's get back to the interview. Makes sense. Now, when it comes to the educational content that you're creating, where do you get the guidance for that in terms of what kind of content to create, what kind of questions to answer?
Hagan in Austria, they provide some information to me, and actually I write the U.S. catalog, I write the website, I translate the information from German into English for them for the catalog, and of course a lot of it is just my expertise of using the gear myself. We're fortunate to live in Breckenridge in the Colorado mountains at 9,500 feet. And I use the gear 200 times a year, 200 days a year. Literally, a lot of the time just from my back door, I, literally walk into the garage, get the gear out, put it on my parking pad and start skiing, climbing the mountains. So a lot of it is just my own personal use of the gear and then knowing how to explain it to people. And, a lot of questions. People call and write with questions. And I, from that, I try to understand where the gaps in people's knowledge are and how to address that.
Makes sense. So you mentioned too that these customer reviews and testimonials have helped a lot in terms of improving sales and conversions. How have you been able to gather testimonials and reviews? What's your process to make sure that you have that kind of content, review content on your website?
Yeah, I use an app called CM Commerce. It was originally Conversio, and it focused on reviews. Also, some follow-up email, in the post-purchase email type things. But people make a purchase and ask them for a review, and that post a review on the product page, and then I can take some of the reviews and put them on the homepage. So that's what I've been using, and that's really been, I think, quite beneficial, especially as a less known brand, to have customer reviews like that.
Yeah, sometimes the reviews, people skip right down to the reviews first, at least, rather than reading the description a lot of times, just to make sure that they're even looking at the right product for them based on other people that have been in their shoes. So it's obviously very powerful kind of gold that they can put on your website. Are there ways that you found that to incentivize or encourage people to respond back to these, post-purchase emails, to leave reviews on the products?
Yeah, I actually just started doing it, and it's a feature of this of the CM Commerce app. I have it set up where they automatically get a email, and it's because of skiing gear. I don't want to send them an email 3 days after they got it. They won't have had a chance to use it yet. So you lose a little bit of that immediacy, but you have to have them, be able to actually get this. They have to mount the skis with bindings. They have to, be able to go skiing. So I wait 14 or 21 days so they can hopefully have actually used it and give a legitimate review. And then I follow up a month, or I've been doing this more lately. It's a feature, can find those people that haven't given a review and follow up a month or 2 months later and ask again. And I've sent them it's an automated, but I write a review saying, or an email saying how important, how helpful reviews are, and asking them with no incentive, no monetary incentive, no discount or anything like that. And I have a pretty good, it's a niche sport. People love the sport, so they're more more likely to provide a review of it than maybe I don't know, a consumer product. Yeah,
right. So this product, just looking at the website now, it's a higher ticket purchase that you can make through a website. It's, I think between $700 $800 is what I'm seeing. How long does it take for someone to typically make that purchase, or do you know, like, from the time that they maybe join your email list or get on your website, how long does it take for them before they make the decision to buy?
I don't know exactly. I am a one-man shop at this point. At some point, although I'm not actually sure, how much I want to grow and or how much I want to keep it, a one-man shop. But so I'm not expert at analytics and so forth. Once they get on the website, I think purchases are relatively quick in that people have been exposed to the sport. They know they want to get something, so they're only comparing it to brands or other products. But once they get on the shop, I think their purchase intent is pretty high. It's just hopefully I get them to purchase from me instead of somebody else. It's not like they're, they've already decided to get something, and hopefully I give them the answers and provide them a product that they want to get.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're a one-man shop, so you probably interact a lot with the customers. Qualitatively speaking, are there certain things that you found that get them over the edge? Are there like certain questions that typically will block them from making a purchase that once you kind of answer for them, they're ready to buy?
Yeah, I think the biggest question or hurdle for a lot of people is they just don't know what type of ski and what type of binding to get. And this is, talking to the new people, and which is, a lot of people, because the sport is growing. So they're just uncertain. They've seen all kinds of different gear, and the gear that tends to be marketed, in the ski films, on the Warren Miller, films and the highlight reels, is the people jumping off, 100-foot cliffs. And so that's the sexy stuff, and sex sells. And a lot of people have questions on, do they need that type of gear? And actually, I think some of the retailers and the market is deserving people, because 98% of people don't jump off 100-foot cliffs. They do different types of skiing. They don't need that big, heavy gear. So my job, because we don't sell that type of gear, we sell lighter, more fitness-oriented gear. We get into that, but our focus, our heritage is on slightly narrower skis, Austrian-style skiing for good skiers that know how to carve. So trying to convince people that our product, which is narrower and a little bit more specific, is the right product for them. So a lot of people come to me and say, hey, I think I need a ski that's 120 millimeters wide. Why should I buy one that's 70? They think it's too hard to ski on. And so I have to explain the advantages of a lighter ski that is easier to climb on. And that takes some time. And I can see the wheels turning in people's minds when I'm speaking to them in person or on the phone. There's a certain skepticism, because all they see in the movies is this other type of gear, and here I am trying to convince them that that's really not appropriate. The preconceived notions are hard to overcome.
Yeah, that's a good point about people. Your customers are coming in with kind of, I guess, incorrect beliefs on what they need based on what they've seen so far, especially if they are newer customers to the category or to the sport in your case. What do you do then in those situations where they're coming in and thinking that they need something else that you don't provide because you don't believe in selling that particular product to them? How do you get them to see it, I guess, the right way, or the way that you think makes the most sense for them?
Right. So, yeah, I'm just really honest with people, and, I'll lose some customers because it's not what they want to hear. So, I don't sell people what they want to buy. If somebody's going down the wrong track, instead of just saying, okay, here's that gear, just go ahead and buy it, I'll try to have the conversation with them first. And, I don't convince some people. And that's where, I can distinguish myself from retailers who have more time pressure. They got to move products. So if people come in with preconceived idea of what they want to get, the retailer's fine to say, okay, give me your credit card. That's not how I deal. I try to have the discussion with them and really examine what they want, what they're going to be using it for, talk about their skill levels, and then explain why their preconceived idea may not really be matching with what is best for them. And some people I can't convince. I see it. I can see it in their eyes, or I can hear it in their voice.
Yeah, certainly better than having unhappy customers, especially when you don't need to, like you said, you don't have that urgency to sell through as much as a retailer that has significant overhead costs. So you mentioned earlier about how the sport is growing. You mentioned this a couple of times. The sport is growing, but one of the big issues is that now you're getting the attention. The kind of big giants, the big brands are rearing their heads and looking at the industry, the kind of niche that you're in. So how do you find a niche inside this as the competitors start moving in, and to kind of survive the big brands that are moving in?
I try to do it through website, with just discussion of the brand and the heritage. And, that in this, fast moving social media and marketing driven world, I don't think tradition is a huge selling point for most people, for a lot of people. But, we have it. So I'm going to still highlight it. I try to highlight expertise and authenticism. But yeah, and then I, on the website, I don't try to pretend that I'm a big brand. I don't try. I'm a huge brand with a marketing department and all that. I use the first person pronoun on the website a lot. I say, this is what I recommend, or I think this is, and I talk about my personal experience and let people kind of know. I put my phone number and my email address on the website all over the place and say, you can call me, and when you call, you're going to get me. You're not going to get, a marketing person or some call center or something. So, so the personal service and expertise is what I'm trying to sell, but yeah, highlight is different from the big brands.
Right. So, one side of the coin, you are a smaller brand, smaller company, one person business. But on the other side of the coin, you use that to your advantage by showing that there's a personal touch to it rather than a big corporate brand that likely, has, hundreds of people working for them and doesn't have as much of an intimate or personal touch to the business. So, clearly a very seasonal business. So tell us more about like what are you doing as you gear up towards or not gear up, but what do you typically spend your time doing during the off-peak season to prepare for the peak sales season for you?
So yeah, it's 10 times busier in January than it is in July. And I guess haven't said it, but it's not a hobby job, but it's a side job. I also coach endurance athletes, including ski mountaineering racers. Fortunately, I coach a lot of triathletes, and that's busiest in the summer and quietest in the winter. So they offset that. That allows me to get that balance a little better. But yeah, so in the summer, I'm preparing for the winter. I'm updating the website, getting the new gear put on the website. Trying to experimenting with new apps or new software, and then the season kicks off in September, October. My gear typically arrives in October, and that's when I get busiest. And then through the winter, you're dealing with retailers or direct sales. And then starting to sell for the following winter starts in around January already. You're starting to. I have to develop price sheets and descriptions of the new gear, and send that out to retailers. Try to get the retailer orders. And so January through April, I'm working with retailers, and then I switch in May and June to starting to prepare the website and the things for the fall.
Got it. So you mentioned that you spent time on improving the website during this time too, and you mentioned so far to us that you use CM Commerce for the reviews. Are there any other apps that you recommend that you use to help run and power the business?
Yeah, there's a few. I've used one. I purchased it a while ago called FAM, Fully Automated Marketing, and it was very simple. Basically, they take a product and create a real quick email, and as a one-man shop, that helped. I am now switching over more back to CM Commerce for the emails. They've introduced some new features where they basically do the same thing. They'll pull up product up out of my product listing and kind of create. I have to create a template first with my brand colors and all that. But they more or less automate an email, and then I can edit it and then send it. Of course, I don't send anything in July or August. I think that would be regarded as spam if I'm trying to send people emails about skis in July or August. So I kind of prepare those, or I will be preparing these now to send later. So yeah, CM Commerce for email is helpful, and I'm moving to that. It was a pretty difficult switch because I had been using MailChimp, and I still haven't completed the conversion, but I'm happy with that so far. I use an app called Make an Offer, and it is what it is. There's a little pop up when they're on a product. It's a little time delayed, and they can make their own offer on a product. Might be a ski, and they can offer instead of $700, they can offer $500. I tend to use that for older gear or gear that isn't moving very well. And frankly, I use it as much to get emails as I do to make sales. I get some crazy offers that I can't accept, but now I have their email and I can hopefully market to them later on. I use an app or a service called Outdoorly for pro sales. In these type of high-end sporting gear, there's a lot of sales to pros, ski patrollers, guides, that type of thing. So I use that to make the offers for them. And then I use a couple of things. There's one called Honeycomb Upsell Funnels by Conversion Bear, and I use a bundle app by Revy. And that's a pretty big deal that I haven't, an aspect that I just haven't cracked the nut on. In Europe, in retail shops, the retailers tend to offer bundles. They'll bundle a ski and a binding and a boot at a significant discount, and that kind of maintains the price level of an individual product, because the discount is kind of spread amongst 2 or 3 different products, and that isn't very common in the United States yet at retailers or online. So I've been trying to offer it through bundles on my Shopify site to make the market more accessible. Lower the price point for especially people coming into the sport, because it's pretty expensive gear. So the bundles can lower that cost or barrier to entry based on cost. But haven't really. I'm not totally satisfied with that yet. It becomes a little bit cumbersome because I have 13 different skis and 9 different bindings. I could have 500 bundle combinations, and it just gets a little cumbersome. And I think probably slows down or reduces conversion as people get confused. So I'm looking into something, a build your own bundle type of thing. People just get a discount by picking a ski and a binding and a boot. But I haven't found a service for that I'm satisfied with yet.
Awesome. So Hagan Ski Mountaineering.com is the website. So what are the goals that you have for this coming year? Do you have any certain goals that you want to get the business to, or any projects that you're focused on to continue to grow the business?
I think my goals are, and I've only probably become profitable in the last 2 years. I would say for the previous 8, I was losing money for the first 3 to 5, and that's why I say it's kind of I could have just bought a pair of skis and saved thousands of dollars over what I was and thousands of hours over the first 5 years. So it was an investment of time to develop it. But the reason I got into doing it originally was to introduce the sport to more people, because it's just such a fantastic sport. It, promotes a healthy lifestyle. It's exciting. People get fit. It's just a healthy, beneficial lifestyle. So that was why I got into the doing it as a distributor originally, and I just want to continue with that. So I want to make the gear accessible, especially the retailers tend to focus on the higher end gear, and I want to try to grow the market for people that are coming in, and cost may be a barrier. So we have some lower price point products, and I'm trying to promote that to get more people to enjoy the sport. It is kind of funny because there seems to be people equate the price with the quality, and for the most part, I don't think that's really true. But retailers seem to be really hesitant to offer the bundles or to offer the price point products. They focus on the higher end goods. So I'm having to do it myself on the website, try to promote the lower cost gear so more people can get into the sport.
Awesome. Great story. Thank you so much for coming on, Mike, and sharing your experience.
Yeah, it's been a great pleasure speaking with you, Felix.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Shopify Masters, the e-commerce podcast for ambitious entrepreneurs powered by Shopify.